1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move, whatever click.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard downs. For those of y'all new to my page, in 1994 I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times I accumulated some good stories, so let's get into one right now. Yeah, that's me right there on the intro. I try to tell y'all the flow is none like Curtis Blow. If you want to hear more of my music or my stories, go to my YouTube playlist. If you want to hear the music, scroll down to gas stations. You will find my music there. So today I'm here to dispel a big prison myth about blacks, Southsiders, and whites not doing business with each other. First and foremost, let me say that there is no blanket policy on the blacks that forbids us against doing business with any other race, right? So you definitely have some policies in place with the Southsiders and the whites about doing business with blacks. But like I told y'all, even though that's something that's expected of them, that's not something that always happens, you know. And so you have a lot of people, it seems, primarily most of those who've never gone to prison, who believes that that's the truth. So just because something is expected, it doesn't mean that people is going to do it. You always have people who are going to try to bend the rules, people who may have certain addictions or just whatever, you know, that's going to cause them to try to circumvent what their people has put in place for them. Keep in mind, everybody done everything that they was expected to do, there'd be no need for prisons in the first place, right? So I'm going to hit you guys with a couple of excerpts from a story done by a dude by the name of L, who was a former Southsider. Now, at the telling of this story, I believe he's on a level 4, and he's explaining how his cellie is doing business with a blood. So what he's talking about is how his cellie was bringing in narcotics for a blood, which is a extremely big violation of their policies. Now, in the event, like I told you guys, for whatever reason, YouTube does not let me upload these excerpts, I'm definitely going to leave the link. But anyway, for the sake of being brief, I'm not, of course, going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to add a couple here and there. And then, like I said, you guys can go check the whole story out. It's being told on a page called Stories by a Current Prisoner. So here we go. Let's check out a few of them.
And this is crazy because this is the 4 yard. You know, one day I see one of the black individuals or black brothers. And let me tell you this. We're not able to mess with other races, or I don't want to say other races, other factions, and then our black individuals, right? My African brothers. And that's something that's been established for decades before I even fucking went to prison. You know, whether they mess with us or we mess with them, it's not allowed, you know. So I see one of the porters that's a blood. He's a blood. Old OG blood, you know, shout out to me, respect for all them individuals. Solid dude, respectful dude. And I noticed that he's calling my celly over there often. And they're talking. I came to find out that this dude was so far gone that that black individual that was going to the cell door, he had sent him dope on the streets so that he could bring it in. And for anybody out there listening, this is a major violation. Not only can we not mess with the individuals like that, like sell drugs to them on the tier or whatever, but you can't, let alone you can't have somebody trucking dope and bring it in You know what I'm saying? And do business on that level, on that scale, you know? So the dude just wanted to know where his fucking ounce of dope was, you know? And he was like, if you can't produce it, you know, just pay me or give it back to me type shit, you know? And the reason I knew this is because eventually I ended up, you know, my celly went either to visit or he went somewhere, and I ended up hollering at the black, and I told him, like, hey, my boy, what's going on, you know? And he let me know. And the reason he let me know was because at this point he was frustrated with my celly.
So there you heard it right there from a dude who was a Southsider at the time. Now, you may have some people say, well, you know, Chill, why are you putting up stories from that dude or believing that dude once he dropped out and went bad? Well, according to his story, the reason that he dropped out is because he didn't have a whole lot of time left, and he was asked to take his celly's life. He didn't want to do that and take a life sentence. So at the end of the day, it still doesn't negate from the fact his story was his story. Now, I don't believe there's nobody out there who went to prison who can come and tell me that business is not done between different races, even though it's not supposed to be. So in theory, yeah, it's not supposed to happen, like I told you guys. But you know, if everybody done the things that they were supposed to do in prison, you'd have no DPs in any race. You'd have no stabbings. You'd have nobody from any race in prison going to the SNY yard or whatever. And the only reason those things happen is because people are doing things that they're not supposed to do according to the policies, rules, and regulations of whoever they have chose to align themselves with, right? So a lot of people would assume that due to California's racial politics, the reason why people are not supposed to do business with the blacks because it's purely racial. That may be a small element of it, but let me give you guys some other good reasons as well. One of the reasons is to prevent bad business. You know, I came to prison in 1996, before the cell phones, before the green dots, before the prepaid debit cards where you could use to handle a business transaction in prison. When I first came to prison, a business transaction was handled two ways, either with canteen items or through what was known as a mail out, where the two parties involved, one dude would have his family send the agreed upon sum to an address on the street through a U.S. postal money order, right? And so that's the way it was done. And of course, now, if you are aligned with a particular faction or organization in prison that doesn't want you doing business with the blacks, then of course you can't go purchase nothing for no $100, $200 and go take them $200 worth of canteen in a big old giant bag, you know, beans, rice, soups, crackers, canned goods, whatever, because chances are extremely likely that somebody from your potential organization is going to see what you're doing. It's going to come into question. You're definitely going to be figured out, right? So the way you had to do it, of course, was in a mail out, right? Say you have two people doing business who are not supposed to be doing business according to the rules and regulations and policies of one of those individuals, right? And so say the black dude gives the credit to the other person up front, right? He gives him whatever he wants to purchase up front on credit. He goes over there, he does the stuff. It's cool. Now, the black dude is waiting for his money to arrive. Sometimes, you know, either maybe the mail is late. Sometimes you may have an individual who is doing so much, buying so much narcotics in prison, asking his family for money every other week, that they're finally thinking like, okay, why is this guy continuing to ask for money and they don't send the money? You know, you have people out there who sometimes burn their bridges. You have people locked up in prison who sometimes burn their bridges with their loved ones. You know, sometimes guys will have wives, girlfriends, and they feel a extreme need to not let the person down, and maybe they're just unable to send the money at that specific time, and they lie to the dude and tell him that the money is on its way or whatever. The money never gets there. Of course, this dude is going to be upset. You have people in prison who have different levels of understanding, different levels of patience, different different levels of respect and different levels of diplomacy, not knowing how to talk and deal with a person, because I don't believe there are too many people in prison who will owe a person a debt and still allow that person to come talk to him like he's beneath him. That's going to cause a problem, especially when you have people in prison who are hustling narcotics for many different reasons. The profit that you can make hustling narcotics in prison is astronomical compared to what you can make out on the street. You have a lot of people in prison hustling for many different reasons. Some people hustle to get lawyers, to try to get an appeal lawyer to go back and get their case overturned. Some people hustle in prison to help take care of their family on the outside. Some people hustle in prison to feed themselves. I've seen dudes hustle in prison and having money sent to the outside to give to their kids, to help with visits. You may have a dude who 6-7 hours away from where his family stays. And so in order for his family to come up, it's expensive on the gas. They have to come up, and no need to take a 7-hour drive just to have a 3-hour visit. So a lot of times they'll want to get a room for the weekend, stay the whole weekend. That's extremely expensive. Then be able to buy food. You may have 4 or 5 people in there visiting you. So that food out the vending machine gets expensive. And so, a person was depending on that money to be sent so he can help see his family, is going to, of course, eventually get extremely upset when there are too many delays. So there are various different reasons that a person hustles in prison, right? So once again, that's where part of the problem lies. When you do business outside of your race, outside of your organization or your faction, it can't be taken care of and handled in-house, because we know California prison policy dictates that anytime a member of one race puts his hand, assaults, or punches, fights a member of another race, it's going to turn into a full-fledged riot. And so that's a reason right there, to prevent the doing of bad business. Somebody could get paid, have the money sent, and then he gives somebody some drugs that aren't no good, or the person who gets the drugs claim that the drugs were no good. So it's just a bunch of different reasons that those policies are put in place. They're not necessarily policies that were put in place because people don't like to deal with other races, strictly because they're from another race. Another important reason is that you have people from whatever organization who may feel that they don't want to support the cause of another race and making them wealthier by spending their money with them. Some people may figure that this other race, of course, is going to use that money to buy more narcotics to get richer and bigger. Also, he's going to use that money to possibly bribe guards to bring stuff in, because they're not just bringing nothing in for free, to bribe free staff to bring stuff in and stuff like that. And also, let's keep in mind, like I said, you have people in prison who don't necessarily have good intentions. When I was in North Kern, I happened to have a next door neighbor who was a black dude. They called him AZ. Originally, I thought that he was from Arizona, but I come to find out he had a long last name. I believe it was an African name, and it started with AZ. It was hard to pronounce, and so that's what he went by. So one day we're in there, and I can hear him talking to his cellie through the vent. So basically what he's telling his cellie is along these lines, that he has no problem going to purchase drugs from people, knowing he can't pay or not knowing how he's going to pay. He said as long as he didn't get stabbed, he had no problem with getting beat up and getting disciplined, because his urge to get high was too high. I was at another prison with him before we was all transferred down to North Kern, CMC East. He had came from CMC West. Word was that he had been beat up on CMC West behind not paying a drug debt. When he got to CMC East, he was punched a couple of times, eventually for having drug debts. Right before I left North Kern and being transferred to another prison, he was viciously beat up by a few Crips from OVG, which is Original Valley Gangster. I mean, the dude was a light-skinned black dude, and he was beat up extremely, extremely bad, and to his credit, though, he didn't go tell. He stayed on the yard. His face was a mess, though. Eyes black and blue, all types of stuff. So in prison, you have people who don't necessarily have good intentions. And so those are just reasons in part why some organizations have policies not to do business with the blacks. Like I said, it isn't necessarily a purely racial thing. It's just to prevent a lot of problems that could happen if business is not done right. So once again, I'm just dispelling the myth that I see talked about a lot in my comment section at times by people who watch the channel. And I believe, like I said, people who obviously have never been to prison. You know, I don't believe that there's one person who's going to come and righteously done some prison time will disagree with me for from any race, organization, or whatever. So I believe that this is one topic that everybody who has done time can agree on, that things like this happen. Anyway, you already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.
At the house with family, eating, smoking, and playing games.
I smoked a couple ops, left him in the box. The only man that ever hit me with his hand, it was my pops. Any other dummy try, he bout to die, my nigga watch. In a hurry, cause I'm Conrad Murray, giving deadly shots, overdosing till they drop. And I ain't talking propofol, it's 50 in this rifle clip, that's 25 for both of y'all. I played the game so well, I'm qualified for coaching y'all. Got arrested, nigga faced the L and never spoke at all. Got 16 to life in that cell, I never choked at all. I did 24 years before they opened up the wall. Don't ask me about no soap at all, cause nigga that's some gay shit. And like dog shit in the street, I'm nothing to play with. The business what I stay with like a stockbroker. I ain't got famous by talking, nigga, I'm not Oprah. I used to ride so much, they called me the black chauffeur, leaving big holes and shit like that Caddyshack gopher.
Is it ratchet when they say they ratchet? They really ain't with the shit that I be making. They just don't know